any monetary system has within it the ability to allow corruption. There was a time, a few years ago, when the French believed in francs as their money, when the Germans believed in Deutschmarks. They don't believe in those things anymore, they now believe in euros. You can only do that with an idea. Money is just a concept, just an illusion. Banks create money by writing checks on themselves, and that's a verbatim quote. It means that they create it out of thin air. In 2008, the Bank of England admitted that they make money by writing checks on themselves. Now, why do they make it? It's because you've signed for it. So you put a signature on a piece of paper, they then create it by writing a check on themselves. They don't just create money for no reason. They wait until they see a loan application form or a mortgage application form with a signature on it. When you sign, you are saying, create this money for me. And they go, yeah, okay, that's our mechanism, that's the system. But we're not going to tell you that we're creating it for you. We're going to pretend we're lending it to you. That's the fraud. That's the deception. That's the system. But there's no debt really, because they're making it because you are demanding it. When they do create the money, for example, out of thin air in order to provide a loan or a mortgage or something, they only ever create the capital amount, the amount they're actually lending. Okay? They've never ever created anything more than that. Right? They can't do, for the very simple reason that when they create the loan in the first place, they have no idea what the interest is going to be next year. If they created the interest, who would they give it to? How would they give it to something that meant that eventually it would end up in your pocket so that you could pay it back to them with interest? You ask them, can you show me the audit trail of how this money arrived into your account so that you could lend it to me?
We don't have to.
Yeah, that's what they do. They say, you don't have to, we don't have to. And then you write back and say, well, you do have to, because I'm asking. I'm asking. It's my right to know. You see, when you introduce that, they then have to go and come back and say, it's not your right to know, but they never do that, because they know it is. The point is that when you write back and say, you do have to tell me because I have the right to know, they cannot then write back and say, no, you have no right to know. Because then you can write back and say, well, you're really honest, open and transparent, aren't you? I've been reading some of your advertising material, and it says this and it says that, and it says, you know, you're the listening bank or whatever. You just throw their advertising material back at them. You just make them squirm. Because the other thing you can write back and say, well, excuse me, in 2008, in the first quarterly bulletin for the Bank of England, page 103, okay, it says that banks create money by writing checks on themselves. So can you confirm that you just wrote a check on yourself? That's a very good one to write back. I've been through my entire life now, until recently, with the thought in the back of my mind that something isn't right, something wasn't right. And since I got involved in the freedom movement, I've actually found that that's a very common thing that people say. It's been the same thing for them. And what's happened is, because of the freedom movement, they've discovered what those things are. Unless you've done something criminal, then no other human being actually has the right to impose upon you that it is actually a breach of your peace if they don't just leave you alone. You're free if you say you're free, because nobody else is going to tell you. I've not known anybody tell me I'm free. So if I need to be free, I've got to tell myself. That's the most important point. But actually, it's an attitude of mind more than anything. We're not trying to get away with not paying. We're trying to get away with stopping people robbing us. We have now realised the amazing fun you can have with, asserting your freedom. And by having fun, means you know what you are, you know what you can do, and you stand up and you argue and basically show the magistrates up to be the gullible, naive idiots that they actually are. If you get a summons from a magistrate's court, it's a very good idea to write back, excuse me, are you a court de jure or a court de facto? And they will write back and say to you, I've no idea what you're talking about. So you can then write back to say that we don't know very much about law then, do you? A court de jure is a court of justice, which is a court with a jury. A court de facto is just a court that exists. It's actually not a court any more than a tennis court or a squash court is, because it's just got a judge or a magistrates. So a magistrates court and a county court are just courts de facto. The only courts of law, or courts that approach the law, because they've been modified a little bit, are crown courts with a jury and high courts with a jury. But if a judge is sitting by themselves, then they're not a court of law. They're trying to trap you, they're trying to persuade you in a deceptive way to allow them to judge you. So there are other ways where they get joinder in court. One of the ways of getting joinder is when they ask you to plead. Yada, 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 do you plead guilty or not guilty? And if you plead guilty or not guilty, you are giving them joinder to judge you. And they're always going to judge you badly. This is why you don't go to a magistrate's court unless you're going to have fun. And the fun part would come when you would say, I'm not going to plead. And they will then go, well, in that case, we will enter a plea of not guilty on your behalf. Now the fun part comes when you turn around and say, when did I give you a power of authority to do that? If you do enter a plea of not guilty, then you are obviously taking all personal responsibility and liability for that plea, aren't you? And the person, the clerk of the court, who will have told you that they're going to enter a plea of not guilty, will then go very, very quiet and will not say another word. And that is fun. When you see that person go, the clerk of the court in a magistrate's court is the court. The magistrates do what the clerk of the court tells them. So if you shut the clerk of the court up, you've shut that court up, period. You don't give them your name. Okay? Now that means that you'll just walk out, because they'll say you've got no business here. That's one of the good ways of getting rid of it. There's no case to answer. There's no case to answer. What that means is that they have to go through a committal trial, a committal hearing to the Crown Court, where there is a jury. There's a jury in a Crown Court. So they have to go through that. Now they won't want to, okay? But if you stand on there's no case to answer, and I'm not going to plead guilty or not guilty because there's no case to answer, they will either have to drop the thing or they will have to go through the committal procedure. Now, if they go through the committal procedure, if it's serious, if they think it's serious enough to do that, and they commit you to Crown Court, the first thing that will happen in Crown Court is you won't get a jury there, you'll get a judge, but this judge is a Crown Court judge. So he will be A, by himself, and B, he will listen, and C, he will act with a certain amount of diligence. Okay, so if you and they know that in the magistrates' court, they know that what they're going to be passing up is going to be to somebody that actually knows what they're doing. So there's a great deal of impetus for them to just dismiss it, rather than take the risk of passing up a load of rubbish to the Crown Court, because it won't go down very well for them if they keep passing a load of rubbish up to the Crown Court. I mean, they'll get some flack back for that. So the thing is, there's no case to answer. The only way that the law has the right to punish you, which it does if you're a nasty person, is on the unanimous decision of a jury of 12 of your peers. And they hammered out a piece of paper which has become known as the Magna Carta of 1215, and fundamentally it was a treaty between the people of this country and the monarch, in that time King John. And what it fundamentally did was it said, you as a monarch don't have the right to judge us. The only way we can be judged is by a jury of 12 of our peers. And it's been there ever since as a treaty between the people of England and the monarch. I got a congestion charge, charge thing. So I could have argued that I could have gone into, it's a congestion charge. No, it was 7:15. No, it should have stopped. It should have stopped by now. I'll write back and say, you sure this is right? I didn't do that because I could have argued that. I opened my word processor and I typed up, I don't give you domain over my sovereignty, so fuck off. And I printed that out on a sheet of paper, and that's all it said. And I stapled it to the congestion charge and just put it in the post and sent it back to them. And that was about 3 years ago, 3 years ago. And I've not heard a word since. I had got a letter from a solicitor who worked for some other debt collectors. And he was saying, if you don't pay this debt, you do realise I'm a solicitor, don't you? So I wrote back to him, you must be a mentally retarded wanker if you're getting involved in this. And I never heard from him again. One of the things that my local council tried to impose on me was that I had to sign the electoral register. They got very, very stroppy with me and very heavy and said that, I had to. And I told them, no, I don't have to. And after, a certain number of exchange of letters, they gave up on me. So that's an example where they tried to impose their will on me, and I said, no, I'm not going to have your will imposed on me because you don't have the right to impose it. What are you going to do about it if I don't sign it then? And they'll go, well, we could put you in prison. And then you write back and say, what's that going to achieve? And they'll say, well, it'll make you sign it. And you write back and say, no, it won't. No, it won't. It'll just cost you however many weeks worth. It was $2,500 to keep me in prison for per week back in 1993. It must be $3,500 per person these days, easily. So if for a start, you can't put me in prison, only a court can do that. So you'd write back. And then how much is it, and you do know what the sentence is going to be? Supposing it's a week. That's going to cost you $3,500, or it's going to cost the country $3,500. If the court makes it 28 days, that's what, 12 grand? All because I won't sign your bit of paper, and not only that, I still won't sign your bit of paper when I come out. Then what you going to do? I haven't got a TV, but I still get TV license. I get a letter from them every 6 months telling me that urgent action is required. I have got a stack of them that thick because I've been collecting them for the last 10, 12, 13 years. I've had TV licence people knocking on my door now and again. One told me he would see me in court. And I laughed. What I haven't done is ever responded to them. So, well, not by letter anyway. Because, for example, I haven't got a car. But I don't get a representative from the DVLA knocking on my door and saying, why haven't you got any road tax? No? Because I haven't got a car. I don't have to tell the DVLA I haven't got a car. So why should I have to tell the TV licensing I haven't got a telly? What right do they have to knock on my door? What right do they have to send me letters every 6 months? They don't have any right at all. I just treat their stuff as junk mail. It's not even opened. I don't even bother to open it. I mean, I look at it and go, oh, is this to the present occupier or to the legal occupier? I have a laugh about that. Oh, the present occupier, okay. Well, see, an occupier is, what's an occupied territory? It's a territory where somebody, or a military, somebody's military have walked in and claimed it. That's an occupied territory, like for example Hawaii, which is an occupied US territory. And Iraq and Afghanistan, where you know, people have just walked in and taken over. That's an occupied territory. So an occupier is somebody that walks in and with force throws the indigenous people out of the way and says, right, I'm going to rule you. That's an occupied. So an occupier is somebody that does that. Well, I rent my flat from my landlord, who's quite happy to rent it to me. I didn't have to strong arm him or force it. So I'm not an occupier. I just dwell in that. So when it's written to the present occupier, well, that's not me. It's written to the legal occupier. Well, I'm not really interested in legal, so that's not me. And I'm not interested in occupier, so that's not me. If it wrote to the lawful occupier, I still wouldn't be interested because I'm not an occupier. But I've never seen one written to a lawful occupier. They either write to they went through the stage of writing to the present occupier instead of the legal occupier. But this only shows that they have to clue what they're really writing to. But on the outside it says, urgent action required. And it's said that for the last 13 years. Okay. Now, if I did get this, I've had a series of knocks and I got to come in. Oh, sorry, what right have you got to come in? Well, I'm a TV licence agent. And? Well, I've got to come in. Do you see those stairs behind you? Well, yeah. Did you walk up them? Yeah. Could you walk down them again? Well, yeah. I suggest you do that. And close the door. And what they do is they then put something through the door. I wait for that. And as soon as it comes through, I know they're still outside the door. So I pick it up, screw it up, and as they walk down the stairs, I throw it over to them and say, oh, by the way, stuff your bullshit up your arse. And that's been the situation for the last 13 years. That's TV licence. You have to be prepared to think for yourself and work out what to do for yourself. Largely, it is an attitude which, when you get the letter and you read it, first of all, you think, oh God. But then you read it again and you pick out all the mistakes in it. And then one of those mistakes will give you a lever to go back at them. I'll give you a quick example of that. A friend of mine, a speeding ticket, friend of mine very recently, she just basically, the first technique she used was to send it back, return to sender. Okay? Now she's got a notice on her door. She's got a notice of removal of implied right of access on her door, and to get to her front door you have to walk down her garden on her property. She then got a letter hand delivered about this matter, which said that, you know, the Chief Constable of Norfolk was had authorised this. And she emailed me and she's, you know, going, oh my goodness me, what do I do now? And I said, right, well, first of all, you stay calm, cool and collected and read it again and think about the situation. And she did that, and she emailed me back about 2 days ago saying, well, that's interesting. Of course, it's hand delivered not by the postman, because it's not got a stamp on it and no return address. So in order to deliver it, they walked on my property. Isn't that trespass? And I said, yes, that's exactly what it is. So you can now write back, send a letter back to the Chief Constable saying, I didn't authorise your people to trespass on my property. And I want the name of the person who trespassed, because I'm going to prosecute that person. And if you don't give me the name, I'll prosecute you, because you're the Chief Constable and you're responsible. Don't take on too much in one go. Do it carefully, do it slowly, gain the experience. And as you gain the experience, you can then, spread your wings a little bit further. But take on something like, for example, the local council, and don't refuse to fill out the electoral register and see what happens. And when they say that you've got to do it, go, well, hang on a second, I control my arms. You have to look at it positively. You have to have a positive outlook. You have to be looking for the lever, the leverage to open this can. And it's something that you can only gain by experience. And the best way of gaining that experience is to put a toe into the water